Walt was the first man that I saw cry with tears of compassion. Walt was the first man that I knew that cared for people that did not look like him.
Walt was not only my boss, he was my mentor, my best friend, and ultimately, he was my brother.
I think Walt brought a lot of energy. That's what made him different. Everything that Walt did was 150%.
I'm sure a lot of these kids that were here can attest to that, that without Walt, they don't know where they would be. I mean, in me in my life, just being on the board and all that, he helped me through things and changed my directions. So I wasn't a kid growing up in here, I was a young adult, and spent 20 years here. So, he wanted the best, and he believed in all the kids, no matter where they came from, or what was going on.
One of my favorite memories is the Christmas tree lot. As crazy as it sounds, there was something about the Christmas tree lot when we worked at it, and we're selling Christmas trees, and the guys all hanging out there just talking, and I guess the best reference was eating dirty water hot dogs out of a crock pot just to have something to eat and stuff like that, hanging out in the Christmas tree lot. I had a blast. So, terrible work. It was always cold during that time of year, but it was fun. I mean, and it was just the camaraderie that we had just out there joking and laughing and stuff like that. It was a unique experience that I haven't had since.
He could lift you up when you were down. The Lord knows he did that to me personally, along with, I'm sure, countless kids and other people that worked here and directors and employees. And I think anybody in his life, he had that, in him, and he would take the time out, no matter how busy he was, to listen to you and help you out.
The first time I ever heard him tell a group of kids he loved them all, and I watched tears run down his face, and I remember thinking to myself, he loves all these kids. I couldn't do that. And I remember thinking that the first time I heard him say it, and I also remember a little cynicism, thinking that he can't love all these kids. Well, 26 years later, I completely understand it.
My first impression of Walt, oh goodness, that's a really good question. Big teddy bear, because Walt was very tall and I'm not. So that was, a big teddy bear with a great heart.
I think the greatest thing, other than his love for kids, was his understanding that they make mistakes. They have to be forgiven. Sometimes they have to earn it, but that they have to be given an opportunity and another chance.
Now, one thing I would actually say about Walt was everybody gets an opportunity, no matter how big, small, color, race, gender, background, whatever the case was, everybody got a chance.
I learned so much from Walt over the years. He always gave his opinion, but I can guarantee you one thing. His opinion was always based on what was best for the kids.
I first met Walt when I became the executive director next door at Girls Inc. of Winter Haven. He knew that the former director had gone, and he had a good relationship with the long-term director there. And so he came over and introduced himself, and we sat down and talked, and he just said, what do you need? How can I help you? And so that just really helped me come into my new role. So that was a real blessing for me.
I met Walt Hall about over 25 years ago, and I remember hearing his big voice talking about the clubs and his history at the clubs back then. And as a young person from the city, I said, this is one great big country guy with an amazing heart. And the one thing that he said at every single meeting was, let's not forget the kids. This is about the kids. And he would always talk about that at every meeting. And we still don't forget about him, thanks to his thoughts. And we will always remember that. But he was always about the kids. Walt Hall, we miss you, but we love you.
The impact Walt Hall had in my life is extensive. Like I said, this was my safe place when I was a kid. I went here from the ages of 5 to 17. This was my first job. And the career that I have today is because of the Boys and Girls Club. I got the Youth of the Year award, which paid for me to go to the police academy. So I would not have my job that I have now without that money. And that was all because of Walt Hall guiding my life from that time period.
Anybody that knew Walt later on in life knew Walt was not an early morning person. So most of the time, our conversations happened over lunch. His favorite place to eat was Smoking Jim's in Winter Haven, and man, I couldn't tell you how many times I got tired of eating barbecue, but you know, that's where he liked to go. So, you know, we had a lot of lunch discussions there.
Walt Hall was one of those individuals who commanded a room, whether he was in the presence of kings or in the presence of kids. You had to pay attention to this giant personality who everyone loved, everyone respected, but the one thing I will always remember about Walt is, and what inspires me to this day is, he showed me that you didn't have to come from the biggest club or have the largest budget to have the biggest impact on this movement and to have the respect of your peers.
Walt was one of those leaders as a young professional that I could always count on to give me the right advice. And one of the things that he always said is always show up with joy and keep the kids in mind. He was the most passionate, dedicated professional that I think I've ever met. And he always led with his heart, but also understood the business side of our work and made sure that everything that he did made a difference in the lives of kids. And that's what it's all about. Walt, we miss you. Thank you so much for all you did for me as a young professional and young professionals across the nation.
It's an understatement to say that without Walt's impact in my life that I wouldn't be where I am today. Growing up in areas where people are often forgotten about or given no hope or given no opportunity, Walt Hall provided a place that he made sure that that place was feasible for parents who were struggling economically. So without Walt's presence in my life, I know I wouldn't be where I am today.
So, Walt, I love you. You're my hero. See, I love Walt. Thank you.